Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program this evening. As usual, thank you for joining us. Those of you who have joined on YouTube early, thank you for being there. We appreciate you joining us every evening. Please don't forget to share the links with your friends, family, colleagues as we listen to views from Professor Bolaji Akinyemi on various international events across the world. Prof, do you have any opening comments for our guests this evening?
Just to join you in welcoming them to the platform and to tell them that I myself have been looking forward to our engagement today. And since there are so many important issues that have crept up in the world since our last engagement together, and I always look forward to this opportunity to be engaged with them.
Excellent. Thank you once again for being here this evening. Well, Prof, to start off this week, we've been greeted with the imminent release of a vaccine, and the UK has been the first country to formally give approval to that. Firstly, how do you react to this news of a vaccine being now readily available, approved by a major government? And as of this evening, there is news that some of those vaccines are actually on trucks making their way to centers in the UK where they will then be distributed to hospitals where patients are in dire need of them. What is your reaction to this news, Prof?
Well, for the sake of our civilization, human civilization, it is good news. Um, it's a good Christmas present um, for at least for the people in the United Kingdom. Um, I hope there will not be some sense of triumphalism in the UK about being the first one to do so. Um, I would have been, honestly, honestly, I would have been more reassured if there could have been some coordination between Britain, the European Union, and the United States that to jointly make the announcement or make the announcement within the same day. Um, I would have been more reassured, and that will have given this sense of global reassurance. Um, I've listened to different reasons given by different countries why they are waiting. Uh, Two, I believe, countries in Europe, so actually they are really busy to make the announcement as well, but that they think it will be more reassuring to their people if the whole of Europe, the European Union, makes the announcement collectively. I think that's a a more sensible approach. And as I said, I would have been happy if if we are talking about just one day um, to wait to coordinate with the United States. Now there are mutterings, and we must be aware that there are people out there who are jittery. I'm not talking about people who ideologically are opposed to vaccination. No, but the ordinary man who is jittery, or the ordinary woman who is jittery about this vaccination, it will have been more reassuring. It will have been more effective in terms of public relations if these things could have been coordinated. I think it doesn't speak well of the approach for one country to run as if it's trying to beat the gun. You gain nothing really, or what you think you gain in terms of national pride. Um, you lose ones that are now muttering from scientific communities in different parts of the world. But nevertheless, congratulations to the human race.
Prof, let me pick you up on that point a little bit. Um, do you see this as the UK trying to score a goal against the European Union to say that, yeah, we're about to leave, but hey, we got this vaccine out there before you. Um, and I know that Dr. Fauci has claimed that they are the gold standard in terms of the regulatory approach to vaccines and things like this. So, do you see the UK trying to play a game with Brexit round the corner and trying to say that? And do you agree with this sort of claim and assessment from Dr. Fauci that the US is the gold standard when it comes to things like this?
Um, Look, it is irritating to me, this kind of debate. It's childish. I know. I mean, the one or two British ministers actually started this, one in your face, for Brexit. It could turn out to be an own goal. I don't like this kind of childish games as if it's a rugby match, on the fields of Eton or Harrows. We are talking about human life. We are talking uh, about a vaccine that could be the answer to this rapacious virus that has claimed, first of all, how many million people, have been infected, and how many have died, and how many will still die. Before the end of the year. I think it's a silly game. It could end up being a known goal, frankly, that was played. And now, as you rightly said, the Americans are claiming that they are the gold standard. So, what is Britain? The silver standard? Or is it the European Union that will be the silver standard? While that little island offshore some sea will now be the what the what's usually the third medal when you are playing games. That
Bronze.
is what I was really warning about. What should have been a celebration of the human ingenuity is now being marred in in stupid competition. And I must say, Britain started it, but I suppose we will continue to see more of this kind of things. Coming from people who should know better.
Prof, at the early stage of this pandemic, um, you raised this warning about a possible beggar thy neighbor approach once a vaccine is found and things like that. And one thing we are seeing now is that uh, countries are buying vaccines beyond their borders. Um, UK is obviously buying from the Pfizer one. We've got the Moderna. We've got the Oxford one. What are your views on this? The different countries that are choosing to buy from other places, even though they are developing their own capacity as well.
No, I think one lesson which the whole world has learned from uh, was that at the beginning of the pandemic, almost every country found itself short of this PPE, um, and they were roundly condemned by their own people. The citizens in each country asked what their government was doing, that there was a scarcity of these essential goods. So now that nobody is really sure of what vaccine will work or not work, they all decided to buy upfront stocks of different vaccines, which at that time were just at the stage of um, investigation. In case one will work, two will work, others will not work. They didn't want to get caught short again by saying, why didn't you invest money in several? And then if one of it works, nobody was going to blame any government for investing in other that didn't work, because we were all in a panic mode. And the whole world, 3 billion human beings, will need to be vaccinated. You know, it is like smallpox. If in a plane 350 human beings and 349 get vaccinated, and one person is not vaccinated and comes into that plane, it's a danger to the 349. So the entire 350 have to be vaccinated. I understand. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a medical person. I'm just somebody who listens and tries to use my common sense. Although I must admit that in this case of the pandemic, common sense had become even a scarce commodity. But I've been told that the whole world needs to be vaccinated. And if you put together right now what we know about the capacity of the two that are on the verge of being approved, it doesn't cover 1/10 of what you need. We are still going to look at the Chinese one. We are still going to look at the Russian one. We are still going to look at the Oxford one, and put all of them together to make sure that you cover as much of the human race as possible. Or else, one infected person, because you see, right now, we don't know how the effectiveness of the duration of the effectiveness. Is it 90 days? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year before it wears out? Therefore, is it one shot we need or two shots? So really, I think for once, let us congratulate our government who have just invested in several of these vaccines.
Prof, I have two quick questions before we move on to the next point on this. First of all, would it matter to you which one of those vaccines that you take?
I mean, first of all, it's not even in my hands. I live in Nigeria. So it's the Nigerian government, is regulatory agencies that will decide what vaccine comes into Nigeria. I do hope it's the Oxford one that comes to Nigeria and that is approved. I do have a soft spot for Oxford University. It happens to be my old university, and we do
Or,
do pretty well on all these matters, I dare say. So let's hope the Oxford vaccine comes on stream, and let's hope the Nigerian government, approves that.
all right, let me ask you the last question on this. Some politicians and past presidents of the United States have suggested that they will be willing to take the vaccine on live TV. Would you?
Yes, I will be prepared to do so upon medical advice.
Upon medical advice.
Yes, because all these former US presidents, I'm older than each one of them. So one doesn't know their medical situation, but in terms of age, I outrank them. That's why I will consult my doctor. But I will be prepared on television to take my jab if my doctor says no problem.
All right, thank you for that, Prof. Um, in one of the previous programs, you raised concerns that President-elect Biden was not appointing enough African Americans and people from academia. Uh, it seems that your advice has reached them. How do you feel about the new appointments that he's announced on his economic team?
Well, as you rightly said, obviously I am pleased that there is a diversity now in his appointments. At the time I raised concern was when his national security team did not show that diversity. Uh, yes, it was at the back of my mind that there were many more appointments to be made, but as I explained, maybe because that's my field. International relations is my field. I'm a professor of international relations. I have been a former foreign minister. Therefore, I would be more inclined to pay attention to appointments and regard the national security team as the grade A team. I didn't say that there were not going to be more appointments. So to that extent, my observation of the lack of diversity in that grade A team still stands. I, however, concede that when he moved to the economic team, there is now more diversity, more pleasing diversity. Um, and I hope that this will continue to be reflected as we move along. There are probably, you know, who knows, 2,500 more appointments that we still have to make. Not cabinet caliber. In terms of the cabinet caliber, you probably are thinking of maybe about 30 more. I hope we will have that, diversity that is needed. You see, it is very critical And people seem to not to understand this, that every child in America should be able to look at the cabinet and see a reflection of his or her own face and say, oh, I belong. I belong in people who will be arranging my present and arranging my future. It probably is people who've never lived in the United States and who don't live there, who don't really understand the psychological need to have this diversity. I am pleased. So far, so good.
Prof, I want to play a clip for you just briefly and see what your reaction is to that because there was one particular appointment on the economic team that is actually quite close to home. Let me play this, Prof, and then we'll get your reaction to it.
As Deputy Secretary of Treasury, I nominate Wally Adierno. Wally is, Wally, I don't know. I tell you what, Senator Warren really likes you. She highly recommended you, but I wasn't sure she worried I stole you as well. But thank you for being willing to do this, Wally. A skilled leader and thinker on issues ranging from macroeconomics to consumer protection and from national security to international affairs. I've worked with Wally during the Great Recession. That was my excuse to the senators, saying that's why I wanted to steal you. And I saw him tackle one big job after another. Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, Deputy Director for the National Economic Council, former Chief of Staff to Elizabeth Warren, where he helped create the Consumer Protection Bureau and Financial Bureau, which has done so much good. It's designed to protect consumers and working people from unfair, deceptive, and abusive financial practices. And now Wally will be the first African American ever to hold this post and the highest ranking African American in the Treasury Department's history. An immigrant from Nigeria, the son of a nurse and an elementary school principal. Wally understands everything we do is basically for the people, for families, hard-working people, to understand their struggles and most of all, their dreams. And he understands both. And I want to thank you, Wally, for being willing to do this.
Prof, how did you feel hearing that sort of introduction for a Nigerian?
Very pleased. But I'm not going to limit this to his being a Nigerian. He is an African. And I think that any African who had that kind of introduction should feel proud of this young man. It's an achievement for Africa. Probably people have been expressing different views about, maybe you should have stayed at home or our talent, now is being recognized abroad when we don't recognize it at home. There will be that's another issue, entirely. But this is a brilliant, experienced young man, an African American with the African heritage, who has risen at a very young age, 39, to become the number 2 man in the Treasury. Now, this reminds me, one of those who follow our program religiously actually said to me that when I was talking about people working under different administrations before getting to a particular level, I didn't give enough examples. Well, here is another example because as the president-elect said, he was even chief of staff to Senator Warren in one of the departments before he then became deputy national security advisor for economic affairs to President Obama, and now deputy secretary of the treasury. And keep an eye on him. He's going to be a full-time secretary, either under this President Biden 2-3 years down the road, or under President Kamala Harris. This is the way the American system works. There was, I can't remember the too many names to keep in one's head, but the Secretary of Defense for President Obama has served as Secretary of Defense under President Bush before he then became president, before he became Secretary of Defense under Obama. So really, the experience is built, and that's probably what has built up the system in the United States. Yeah. But congratulations to Wale.
Prof, one other point that would be good to get your views on is this, where we're hearing that the GOP is already starting to signal their intention to block some of the nominations of the president-elect. Did you expect anything different from them at this stage?
Not from this crop of Republicans. Usually, there's usually been a tradition over the years, over generations. Let the president have the men and women that he feels should help him run his administration. Give him, if you like, that respect as a president elected by the people. However, this Tea Party know nothing Republicans, ever since Obama's time, all they know is how to oppose, how to derail. So I'm not surprised that this is coming from them. It is an extension of Trump's personality and the game Trump is even playing right now on whether he won or lost the election and what have you. So I'm not surprised. And this is why the election to the 2 senatorial seats in Georgia is very, very critical for the success of the Biden administration. Because if the Democrats win those 2 seats, then they can get their cabinet nominations through the Senate. They can get their nominations for judges through the Senate. They can get, they can have a blueprint of economic development, of economic resuscitation through Congress. But if the Republicans win those 2 seats, I'm afraid that it is going to be irritating, an irritating 2 years because in 2 years' time, elections will be held into the Senate, and who knows how that will swing. But I think this kind of politics is not good for the United States.
One last question before we leave the United States and we move on. U.S. Attorney General William Barr has finally released his statement saying there was no evidence of widespread electoral fraud. At the same time, we hear that President Trump's personal lawyer is also said to have discussed options for a pardon with the president. Are we starting to see the president's inner caucus cave in and finally accept defeat?
Um, First of all, I say congratulations to the Attorney General. It is this concept of public service that actually won as expected of these high-ranking cabinet members. And it has been a matter of regret that several of them have not had this sense of service to the Republic to put on top or to put beyond service to the political party or service to an individual. Barr finally came through, and I think it's going to be recorded in history as a plus for him. Don't let us forget the Secretary for Homeland Security, who was the first one to say they found no evidence. And of course, he got fired. But I think he will be on the right side of history, while those who are still hanging in there and trying to play up to Trump will probably find themselves on the wrong side of history when all of this settles down. The issue of pardon, we discussed it last week. It's a tradition with the United States that the outgoing president signs a flurry of pardons. And some of them, some of the presidents that we hold in very high regard actually come out not smelling roses when it comes to their last activity of pardons. Nothing presidential, about it, but since George Washington up till now, the American presidents have usually forgotten, I suspect, what is expected of them. In this particular case, where people who have not been accused and charged to court are now scrambling for pardon for federal offenses. It just shows what everybody had always known and said about the nature of activities that had gone on around the White House in the past 4 years. Because if your hands are clean and you have not been accused of anything, why will you be scrambling for pardon? It means you know the skeleton in the closet. But where it's not going to work is that pardon extends only to federal courts. It doesn't extend to state courts. And there are so many of these criminal offenses that can be charged on taxation, for example, evasion of taxation, that can be charged at the state level, to which the pardon will not extend. And finally, there is a constitutional issue here, which will go all the way to the Supreme Court. Can you pardon for an anticipated offense, an offense for which you have not been charged? Can you actually be pardoned for that? I know they cited one in the history of the United States. They have cited one one instance, one precedent, and that is the pardon extended to Richard Nixon by Gerald Ford, because Nixon had not been charged to court. He extended pardon to him, but then it wasn't challenged. So who knows how the American judiciary will regard anticipatory pardon. But of course, given the fact that Trump has passed the Supreme Court, one probably knows the answer, to that. But there's something the Americans are not talking about. There's really one Supreme Court justice over which there could be a question mark. His wife worked under Trump in the White House, and she was involved in some of the programs that was vetting for loyalty Americans working in various departments of government. These are public servants, and some of them and civil servants who were just doing their job, but they were being vetted for political loyalty to Trump, and she was in the center of that program. Now, if I were a senator, I would really have that investigated as to whether there's a clash of interests here between what the wife was doing and his own role as a justice of the Supreme Court, and whether he shouldn't be impeached for that. I won't mention names, but that one is there.
Thank you for that, Prof. Let's move over to Ethiopia. Um, Ethiopian troops declared over the weekend victory over the capital of Tigray, and the fact that they had captured the regional capital there. But we continue to see both sides, the government and the rebel forces, accuse each other, and it is believed that thousands of lives have been lost in the process. What now for the region? What now for Ethiopia, given where they are in the conflict?
I think we should separate the political issue from the humanitarian issue. War is never pleasant. But the political issue is this: can a regional government militarily challenge the authority of the central government? Two, can the nature of the challenge amount to attacks on the military barracks of the central government? And what will any central government in the world do if confronted with that kind of a situation? Of course, I'm asking a rhetorical question. The answer is very simple. The central government will use central power to bring the regional government back into compliance. That's what will happen in any state in the world. That's why countries have civil wars. That's why countries have, even if euphemistically you call it the troubles. When the IRA started attacking the Northern Irish police, the military was sent in by Margaret Thatcher. And when those troops also came under attack, she sent in more reinforcement. So I didn't expect that the central government in Addis Ababa would do differently. What surprises me, and I still don't have an answer to this, is under the Ethiopian constitution, any region, and this was a constitution written after the civil war with Eritrea, which finally led to the secession of Eritrea from Ethiopia. There is a clause in the Ethiopian constitution which says any region has the right of secession. Now, why Tigray did not activate this clause? Instead, it was to challenge the authority and the power of the central government. That's really what I have no clue as to the choice of strategy. I think it's left to each one of us to come to draw a conclusion as to whether the central government itself acted with good motives when it cancelled the election that was going to be held because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Did it act with good motives, or could its motives be questioned, especially since elections have been held in Tanzania, in Cote d'Ivoire, in the United States, in Guinea. So could elections have been held in Ethiopia? Because this was really the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the issue, the differences, the confrontation between the Tigray region and the central government in Addis Ababa. But as I said, I don't think, once from the side of the Tigray liberation movement, it became a question of military confrontation with the central government. I don't see that the central government had any other option but to reply by reasserting through military means its authority in Tigray. Now, unfortunately, civilians are the ones who suffer in war. Unfortunately, there are more casualties from civilians than from soldiers, which is a pity. And to me, the earlier the military phase ends, so we can move on to dealing with refugees and humanitarian issues, to me, the better. There are people who will always want to put the issue of refugees onto the front burner. But you're only postponing the evil day. It happened during the Nigerian Civil War. And it happens in every civil war. There are those, Amnesty, Red Cross, the Crescent, and what have you, whose primary mandate is to deal with the issues of refugees and civilian victims of war. And I can understand that. But if you don't allow the military phase to be over and done with, you are just going to be creating more and more refugees, even if they declare a ceasefire. And a ceasefire means not an end of the war, but you're just, it's not the end of the war. You are just ceasing military activities only for you to reopen it until the objectives of either side is achieved. So it's a pity that Ethiopia, that we thought had a model constitution that federal states could copy in Africa, is now going through this. That is also where the capital of the African Union is located. Not a major thing. I mean, when the OAU was there, the OAU stayed there all through the Eritrean, civil war. It will stay there while this, but it is a pity because I have visited. I mean, when I was a minister and during OAU conferences, I have visited the Tigray region, beautiful people, friendly people, and it's a pity. The Ethiopian people are friendly. It's a pity that this is going on, but there you are.
All right, Prof. Let me move this conversation to another incident that happened recently, but this time in Iran. And this is where a top scientist was assassinated. Now, a number of months ago, the US, in a very brazen attack, took out a top Iranian general in another country. And when Iran responded to that, it was a major catastrophe. How should Iran be responding to what has happened now?
It's you have raised an issue which we all need to keep our fingers crossed and probably add prayers to, that um, good sense will prevail uh, on the part of that caution will be the operative emotion on the side of the Iranians. Now, people may feel I'm blaming Iran for this. I am not. I believe that a trap has been set for Iran by whoever was behind this assassination. And the trap will be for Iran to react in a way that will provoke Trump to now use American military means as a reply to whatever it is Iran decides to do in retaliation. And those behind this assassination, that's precisely what they want. And that will then make it extremely difficult for the incoming Biden Harris administration to get onto the round table with Iran and seek through diplomatic means to get a new agreement with Iran on the nuclear program of Iran. That's what they want. And that's why I said the ball is in the court of the Iranians to exercise caution, to exercise patience for Biden to come in. It is going to be difficult because there are hardliners in Iran. Iran is not, the government in Iran is itself not united in what its response should be. It's not even united in whether Iran should accept Biden's offer for them to come back to the negotiating table. There are hardliners in Iran, and I think that uh, that the the liberals, I'm just using, appellations that will be easily understood rather than going to some, convoluted analysis of the political, arena in Iran. But hardliners on one hand, softliners on the other side. I pray that the softliners will, of which the president of Iran, incidentally, is among the softliners, that they will prevail. Obviously, the final decision will be made by the Ayatollah, who outranks the president. I hope that the decision will be to, calm down and wait for Biden before they then decide what to do, when to do it, and where to do it.
Thank you for that, Prof. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want us to address something that I know is a bit of a passion for you, and that is space programs. We this week, China landed a probe on the moon, and coincidentally, a historic telescope of the United States collapsed at the same time. Now, some people are drawing a bit of a parallel between those two things to say that the rise of China and the fall of the United States when it comes to space programs. Um, what is your view on this, Prof?
Yeah, I say congratulations to the Chinese, but at the same time, it could be congratulations to the human race if the Chinese decide to share the outcome of their research with the whole world. But it is interesting that this is happening at this time because it simply shows that whatever may be the shortcomings of Chinese foreign policy, and they're not the only country who have the shortcomings in their foreign policy. There are issues on which you need to engage the Chinese. And there are cards that the Chinese can play. Whatever specimens they bring back from the moon will be or should be of interest to the whole world, and they can share if they want. If you don't antagonize them, they can share these specimens with the scientific community, so that research goes on all over the world. I mean, after all, the moon belongs to all of us, not just to one country. And I also hope that, well, African nations who are lagging behind in space research, that this will focus their mind away from whatever games they are playing on Earth here, that they are being left behind, and they should get the brightest and their best scientists to focus on this issue.
All right, Prof. Thank you for that. But before we round up, one last little question I want to ask you about this space program. Would you have loved a trip to the moon?
Who, me?
Yes.
Goodness. Um, I know I'm rascally, but I don't think I'm that rascally. No, no, no. Let me stay here. If you had asked me this question when I was 30 or 40, the answer would have been yes. But at this age, I'll stay here and look at the moon from here.
Thank you very much for this evening, Prof. This has been quite enlightening as usual. I was thinking that maybe for the next session we have you on the moon, and
Oh,
we're beaming you from the moon.
too
Too
late, my
late.
man.
Well, thank you to our viewers for joining us this evening. Hope you enjoyed the program as much as we have done. And we'll be back again here, same time next week, 7 p.m. in the United Kingdom, 8 p.m. in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. See you next week.